Hello and welcome to France 24's weekly music show. I'm Jennifer Ben Brahim. Today, I'm joined in the studio by an American singer, songwriter, producer and guitarist who has his fingerprints over some of the great music of the last 2 decades. Jesse Harris has collaborated with the likes of Gardot and Lana Del Rey, as well as taking home a Grammy for his work on Norah Jones' album Come Away With Me. He's also a frontman, blending folk, jazz and world rhythms, such as on his latest album, Paper Flower. It's a joyful yet melancholy-tinged ode to the French city of lights. Now, Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, before we dive into your new album, we're going to be talking about some other big releases from this week. And we're going to start with British pop star Dua Lipa, who is back with her first album in 4 years. Now, radical optimism is packed full of pop sounds, as you can expect from Dua Lipa, but she's also said that it's a kind of 70s style psychedelia twist to it. Now, the record includes the singles Houdini, Training Season, and this next track, Illusion. So that was Illusion by Dua Lipa. Now, it may have been filmed on the rooftops of Barcelona, but the album is said to be inspired by Dua's hometown of London. Now, Jesse, you are no stranger to kind of linking your musical process to geography. Now, your album Sub Rosa was recorded in Rio.
That's right.
And Aquarelle was made in Lisbon. And now your latest album, Paper Flower, was recorded in Paris and seems to really be this love letter to the city. What do you find so inspiring about Paris?
Well, I've always had an affinity for Paris ever since I first came here when I was 21 years old. But in the years since then, I've made a lot of friends here, and there are a lot of musical artists who I collaborate with, and that's brought me closer into the community and the culture of the city. And of course, I love Paris, and so so does everybody. But having that connection makes a really big difference.
We can definitely sense this love affair with Paris throughout the album. Now, move on to another music release and the return of pop starlet Sia. She's back with Reasonable Woman, and it's her 10th studio album and the first one since 2017. Now, it's quite a celebrity affair. The collaborations are quite wild, including Chaka Khan, Paris Hilton, Labyrinth, and fellow Aussie Kylie Minogue, like on his next track, Dance Alone. Now, that was Sia with some special help from Kylie Minogue, rather. Now, Jesse, you've also collaborated with many artists over the years, such as Norah Jones and the French band Papoose, who I actually had the pleasure of having on the show this year to talk about the album that you actually produced. What makes you decide to work with a particular artist, and who's on your wish list, would you say, for future collaborations?
Most of my collaborations come about naturally. For example, I met Papoose backstage at one of their shows. A singer who I work with here named Gabby Hartman had told me about the band and introduced me. And so I don't really, it's very rare that I'll seek out somebody who I really want to work with. Things just seem to arise naturally. Same thing with Norah when, many years ago, I met her on a road trip. So, on my wish list, I don't honestly have one.
Paris Hilton, Chaka Khan, any inspiration from Sia's album?
Yeah.
Maybe? Okay. Well, we're going to talk a bit more about your new record, Paper Flower. And I kind of want to ask, why the title Paper Flower? What does it symbolize?
I keep a list of titles sometimes. I have an instrumental group, and sometimes I'll use those titles for instrumental compositions, and then sometimes they'll find their way into lyrics. And it was something that I was playing around with for a while, and then I had that music, and all of a sudden that that phrase fit, and I built the song around that. What the actual lyrics mean is it's more of a symbol of a real thing versus maybe something that's a fake.
Okay, we're going to listen to one of the tracks off Paper Flower. This is It's Okay.
In my mind, you wait for me on a rock down by the sea, staring at a cloud in the sky. It's okay. It's for the best.
So that was It's Okay from Jessie Harris's latest album, Paper Flower. Now, I absolutely love this video, and it feels genuinely nostalgic, and I understand that it is. Can you tell me more about this video?
Well, it was shot on Super 8 film by the father of Kenny Wollesen, who's the drummer on the album. And Kenny, and who I've been working with since, many years. Kenny's father spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia in the late 60s and early 70s, and he shot this film in Singapore of these snake charmers. And Kenny recently discovered all these Super 8 films, and so he edited the video together from this footage. And somehow the way he did it really matches the rhythm of the song and the feeling of the song. I love the video too.
Yeah, it really complements the sound, and how incredible to have this footage available
so special,
to be used. Now, I actually have a chance to see you perform at last week at Paris's iconic Sunset Sunside Jazz venue. Now, coincidentally, this Tuesday is actually International Jazz Day, as designated by UNESCO, and it's the world's biggest celebration of the genre. Now, events will be taking place across the globe, but right here in Paris, you can catch the likes of kind of up-and-coming jazz sensations, Theo Crocker, or the Dave Bristow Quintet. Now, I wanted to ask you, Jessie, do you think that jazz is becoming more accessible these days? It's kind of dusting off this image of being quite, snobbish. Do you feel like it's attracting this younger audience?
It's definitely attracting a younger audience. I'm not sure that actually the music is necessarily becoming more accessible, but some of it absolutely is. I think there's a lot of artists who are making music that is still really sophisticated, but maybe for a broader audience. But I think there's a real interest in all kinds of jazz from younger listeners.
Now, what's next with this album? Are you going to be bringing it out on the road in France, or where can we see you? Where can our audience come and see Paper Flower live?
The next, gig will be in New York.
Okay.
We're playing June the 2nd in New York City, and then there's a few gigs around the Northeast of the States that week.
And I have to ask, what's your next city or country that will be the inspiration for an album? There must be another country.
Well, it's funny, I used to do that quite a lot more. But then I got my own recording gear, and in the past 5-6 years, I usually record at home, so it was quite unusual for me to come to Paris and do this project here. But I really loved that studio, but it was actually Kenny's idea, because he and Tony, the bass player, Tony Scher, they were on tour, but they were between two tours with Bill Frisell and Laurie Anderson, and they had like 5 days off. And Kenny suggested that instead of going all the way back to New York and then coming back to Europe, that they come and meet me in Paris, since I've been here so often, and record here. And I really loved this Studio Pigalle, where I had been working, and I thought it would be fun to do an album there. I actually always wanted to do an album in that studio, and so it all came together like that.
Well, it's an amazing chance, calendar timing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, before we go on, to ask you about the band that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're part of a band called Cosmo, where you really focus on instrumental compositions. Now, why this choice to focus just on instrumental?
Let's see, around 2005, I started putting instrumental songs on my albums, usually one or two. And then I was invited by John Zorn to do an album of music for his label Zodic. And so I thought it'd be cool to do all instrumental music. Over the years, I kind of fell away from it a little bit, but then I did a gig at his club, The Stone, and I decided to do a night of all instrumental music, and that brought me back to the Cosmo project. And I love playing instrumental music, and I write a lot of instrumental music, and so it gave an outlet for that. And we've done 2 albums now since I started again. One's called But When, and the most recent is Spring Song.
Well, Jesse, we've actually come to the end of the show. It's
Okay.
gone really quickly, and I want to thank you for being in the studio with us. And a reminder that Paper Flower is available to stream, to buy on vinyl.
Yep.
And before we go, we're going to be talking about one more release, and it's actually my album of the week by American singer-songwriter Jessica Pratt. Now, Here in the Pitch is her 4th album, and she says it was influenced by the end of the LA's hippie era and the California dream. So as you can imagine, the sound and the visuals are quite dark and hypnotic. We'll leave you with the track World on a String. Now, for more arts and culture, you can head to our website and social media. There's more news coming up on France 24 right after this.
Used to